Today's topic is you have enemies. It's a froggy, soggy morning. Headed to Greencastle and then to Pittsburgh. And then most of the way home, I hope. I don't know. I probably won't get home before my shift runs out. For the moment, let's assume that you are a very unusual person. Potentially, at least. Potentially, instead of being in that fat part of the bell-shaped curve, you are potentially extraordinarily gifted or amazing or talented or something. Way out there at the end of the tail, on the right. And if that's potentially you won't get out there and meet your potential unless you have life circumstances that give you the opportunity to level up to that point. Think Deadpool. I've mentioned him in the previous show. Deadpool potentially was a superhero, but he couldn't realize his superpowers without some really difficult circumstances. He was put in a chamber where he didn't have enough oxygen all night long, and that led to his superpowers emerging. That kind of stress. And stress isn't something we typically ask for, and he didn't thank the person that put him in that situation. He shot him in the head, actually, which I thought was appropriate. And that kind of leads to the point of today's show, which is you have enemies. That guy that put Deadpool in that horrible situation was his enemy, clearly. And yet, Deadpool leveled up because of that enemy. So if you think about life as a way to get where you're trying to get, then everything can work together for your good. Doesn't mean it will. And if you are potentially an average person, and most people are, then even with all of the stress and enemies and obstacle courses, you'll end up where your destiny points you, kind of in the fat part of the bell-shaped curve. But even so, your obstacles and nemesis challenge you, put you in the best place you can end up if you accept that challenge, if you rise to the challenge, and in many cases, if you manufacture or manipulate your own emotions in a way that allows you to make maximum benefit, that allows you to make the most out of whatever tough situations you're in. Consider your partner or partners, sexually, romantically, your life partners, if you have any, or your family members, your parents, your siblings, cousins, friends, close friends. Think about people that are very close to you emotionally. Doesn't it turn out very often that the people closest to you, the ones you care about the most, are the ones who provide the biggest challenges? You could say in those moments that they're frenemies, because they act like enemies with friends like these. And there you are with stress and challenges that put you in a place where you can level up. I'm thinking about my own partner. We have challenged each other far more than any of our worst enemies. And we both have had some pretty amazing enemies who openly hate us. So we love each other, and even even with all of the wonderful, horrible challenges we face from our enemies, we've given each other even bigger stresses and challenges. These stresses and challenges have not only affected our connection to each other and imperiled it, but have even imperiled our own psyches, our own well-being. And that kind of breaking down, or at least that kind of loading up of stress and difficulty, that kind you would not ask for, but there's still something great about living through it with somebody you care about. It's like boot camp, where instead of the drill sergeant being the one who gives you all the tough challenges, your fellow soldiers do. And afterwards, you may not be able to forgive and forget, and you may lose, and you probably have. If you think back, you probably lost some of the connections that have, in truth, benefited you the most. And I'm not saying you should allow gaslighting sociopaths back into your life if you've been rid of them for a while. But you don't have to tell them this, but you can acknowledge the important place they had in your life and the benefit they actually provided. I find it amusing to think of some of my mortal enemies who have paid attention to my social media, including YouTube, and have gotten their panties in a knot because they worry what I'm saying about them and about their institutional ineptitude or malice. And as I think about them and the challenges I've given them, the challenges they've given me, it makes life a lot more interesting. And it's fun to think that they might watch this and realize that I'm, appreciative in some way. And it would be funny because they'd be like, oh no, I'm not watching your fucking show. You delude yourself into thinking I would ever pay attention to anything you said. But they do. I know for a fact because that's one of the reasons I'm not working at Millersville University anymore. A deal is being cut as we speak, and it looks as though I will be retired from there and with all the benefits. And it's interesting that my enemies probably are aware of that, or soon will be, and they'll be like, hey, I thought we were going to get this guy in a place where he was going to be hurting, and now financially he's better off because he's in a job where he makes more than he made at the university, and he gets his pension and his health care and all the things that retirees get. This isn't the way we expected it to be for him, because we only wished him ill. We only wished him harm. The more the better. I would be pretty willing to bet that they wished me dead, but only if I could suffer a lot first. And so when you do weather the storms, you get through all of the bad intentions, all of the malice, you've done something good for yourself, and you've done something satisfying and perhaps even amusing to your enemies. And again, I'm reminded of what I told you Jesus said about heaping burning coals on them. He said, pray for them which despitefully use you. You could do that, or you could thank them publicly. Whatever you do that shows that you're in a place where they can't harm you anymore. And that's a pretty good place. You may wonder, how did I get to that place where they can't harm me anymore? And the best trick I've learned is shifting my emotions. emotions into neutral. And the best trick to accomplish that trick is that idea of a headache. Because I've told you, I've never had to suffer from headaches. I felt them coming on, and then I could just let them drain out. And so and you can say this is way too over the top woo-woo for you, and that's fine. And you don't have to accept anything other than the fact that this way of thinking has helped me. If you prefer a physical versus metaphysical way of explaining things, that's great. The only acceptance that I would need is that you accept the idea that it has helped me to think of it this way, whether I'm right or not, and I don't really care. And the way I think about it is there's this metaphysical trick where I take on a different form of malice, a different manifestation of malice, and it turns into something that's trying to be a headache. And as I drain that headache away, I drain away the malice and the evil intentions. I think about the default for humans as being bliss, as being joy, the way you feel with holidays and the seasons changing and everything that makes you happy. I feel like that's normal. That's how things would be without attacks. So if I turn all the attacks into headaches, all of these enemies and frenemies and obstacle courses, whatever, whether intentional or not, anything that causes me stress or distress, I turn that into a headache and let it drain away. I feel my enemy's frustration when I can do that easily. And as soon as I don't have any attacks, what I consider to be attacks, my opinion is it's an attack when I feel anything other than wonderful, I can let that drain away. And the default then isn't just neutral. That feeling when you take your shoes off at the end of the day and put your feet up when you've been working really hard, it isn't just relief. It's more than that. It's a deep peace, a deep joy, a deep bliss that just happens naturally when you can ward off all the attacks. I feel, and this is just my opinion, I feel that I am constantly, continually bombarded with attacks. And I want to think that it's because I'm such a stunning, outstanding person that I need to be handicapped to that degree, or I could end up being so fabulous that no one would know what to do with me. And you can say, well, that's definitely just your opinion. And that's fine. I don't mind that. And partly I don't mind it because I've arrived in a place where other people's skepticism, other people being dubious about the way I look at things, it isn't a threat at all. I'm glad to have all of the diversity of opinions, and I'm glad to have the entire bell-shaped curve. And if I do manage to get out into those little, especially on the right side, I hope, tail end of the bell-shaped curve, I want to get there without any malice of my own. I don't want to get there wishing ill for anyone else or being glad that they're suffering. I'm not there yet, but I would like to get there. And that place, I think, is possible for me. I feel like it. And I feel like that partly explains why the attacks are so fierce and frequent. And if I do get to that place, it would be like looking at a bodybuilder, like looking at Jeff Cavalier from athlenex.com. When he speaks, he often has his shirt off, and you can see that something is working for him. So he tells you what to do to achieve your own optimal physique. And as he's telling you, he's showing you that for him it works. So if I end up in an extraordinary place, you'll be able to tell. You'll be able to tell by looking. And I'm not saying that if I do everything Jeff tells me, I'm going to look like he looks. But if I do end up looking like he looks, I can tell you how I got there. And then you can take that for what it's worth. It may not apply directly to you. I know that he is gifted in terms of his genetics, and we all have different kinds of gifts, but whatever takes us to the highest place we can be, if we share that with others, maybe it will help them move also to the highest place they can be. And adding value to the universe like that is worth a lot. It's the kind of person I want to be. I want to be that person. I think the highest version of myself enjoys showing other people how to get to the best place they can get. And I think doing that helps me feel worthy of all the blessings that I enjoy. If you have some philosophical differences of opinion, that's great. I would love to read them in the comments. But at least for now, until you persuade me otherwise, that's how I feel about it.